Everything is made up, and the points don't matter unless you want them to matter. In which case, you know what? Go off. I have a great time. I'm Mallory, as always, and this week I am joined by the lovely Kate and
Hello.
our very fun and very special guest, Jezi. Jezi's here. Jezi's here.
Oh
Jezi,
God,
you can.
I cannot live up to this hype, y'all. I'm sorry.
Yes, you can. You're
Yes,
amazing.
you can.
I mean, feel free to go on making me sound cool and important. Like I'm not gonna stop you, but like, fair warning.
You know what? That's fine. Everything sometimes it just be like that. That's what I was trying to say. Words are hard for me today. So everybody, guess what? Your host is not in the brain house today. But you know what? Sometimes in life it be like that. We have to move on and we have to say la vie.
The show must go on.
Exactly.
Exactly. Thank you. The show has got to go all over the place. So what we are going to do today is just have a nice little chat and we're going to let Jessie talk about how she
Sarah,
came
no, I
to
do.
sports. Just stop. Stop. We're just gonna let Jezi talk about, how she got into the esports scene and how, she's here with us now, how that happened. So
Okay.
Jesse, tell us about where it began for you. Like how did you first get into the idea of
Well, take it back all the way back. I started gaming in general as an adult about late 2007, early 2008, right after I graduated college. I just had a friend who played Warcraft and invited me to come in and play with her guild, and it ate me like it does a lot of people. Um, and I played for the better part of 10 years. Um, went to several BlizzCons during that time. I was a big old WoW nerd. And I had a little exposure to esports, excuse me, over the years. Just with, StarCraft existed. I had some friends who followed it a lot. And so I knew that esports was a thing. I had watched a few matches. I'd seen some of the stuff at BlizzCon and all of that, so I had sort of a background knowledge of it. Overwatch came out. I started playing it sort of casually. I was very bad at it, but I liked it. And it's like I always said, my two great loves in life are video games and writing, and I'm good at one of them. And that's the 2017 World Cup, I think, is the first time I actually watched any pro Overwatch happen. And like most Americans who watched that for the first time, I got attached to Jake. Unlike most Americans, it wasn't because of his face. It was just because the whole thing was a mess of stupid battle tags, and he was the only one whose name I could remember because it was just Jake, and I appreciated that a lot. Um, so then Overwatch League kicked up later on. I literally decided that I liked the Houston Outlaws logo best, and I had a friend who was from Houston. So I decided that I would like them, and among some, several teams that I thought I would pay some attention to. And then I was like, oh, that's that guy from the World Cup. He's on Houston. That's cool. And then I saw that he was playing a lot of Junkrat, and at the time, I was a Junkrat one trick who got constantly accused of being a cheater with no skill, which was completely true. But it made me feel vindicated to see a professional up there, playing my stupid easy mode main and doing well at it. And they continued to be their adorable, charming selves, and the production on the league was really fun to watch. And I get obsessed with stuff really easily, and I sort of fell in head first. Um, so it wasn't something I really sought out. It just sort of happened in front of me, and I was like, oh, that's fun. And then all of a sudden, I'm neck deep in it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was choking on something. But that's actually super similar to my story because I too started like watching esports professionally when I watched the Overwatch World Cup in 2017. I
That was
was
a
like,
lot of people's jumping on point.
yeah, I was like, oh dang, I didn't know people played Overwatch professionally. That's super cool. And I as a Canadian, I was like, "Oh, Team Canada, that's super dope." So I got really attached to Mangachu. Mangachu is like everyone has like the first player that they're like, "Oh, that
Yeah,
person's pretty cool."
the first
Mhm.
one you get attached to.
Yep.
Yeah, but mine's Mangachu, which is why I'm like one of the leaders of the committee of put Mangachu in the Overwatch League, you cowards. Do it now. Let him play Torb. Thank you and goodbye. But no, that's super cool. It's also really I somebody who doesn't like play a lot of other Blizzard games because I don't know, I'm bad at PC gaming. I'm a console gamer. Ha ha ha. So I don't
Hmm.
understand. But it's super interesting to me to hear people who start with classic stuff that everyone knows, like WoW and like StarCraft and stuff like that. Because these are games. I mean, I'd heard of WoW, but I hadn't heard of anything else until like one of my best friends was like, "I'm playing this game called Overwatch. You have to play this game called Overwatch." And I was like, "I mean, I guess." And look at me now.
Actually, the last BlizzCon that I went to was the one where they announced Overwatch, and it was like
Oh wow.
their first new IP in like 20 years. So it was a big deal. It
That's
was a lot of
awesome.
fun.
Was that when they showed? Did they show like the Winston
Yeah,
cinematic?
they showed the
Winston.
first cinema, the opening cinematic, the museum one.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so cool. I'm so cool about that.
I just remember seeing that cinematic and I thought it was like a Pixar movie that was coming out because like
Yeah.
my ex at the time he showed me the trailer without like any context and I was just like
Mhm.
monkey and I got really excited because he knew I love gorillas. So I was like I really want to play this game. This looks awesome.
Kate does love the monkey.
I do. Winston's my
He's
boy.
I actually got into the story side of the Overwatch fandom way before I got into
Mhm.
esports or even playing that much. Well, like I said, I'm bad. Uh, I can't aim. That's my biggest thing. It's like as soon as they made Symmetra where you actually had to aim her gun, I became useless. So
how dare they take away all these characters from us? I play on console, so I know what that's like. Aiming, never heard of her. I don't know
yeah.
her. I
Yeah.
play some.
Yeah. I
Let's say
one-tricked Mercy for a very long time, so
I came from WoW where we had a thing called hit rating, where
Mhm.
you could build up enough of a stat that it meant you never missed. And I was like, I didn't actually have to aim at anything. I click on the thing that I want to kill, and then I click the buttons of what I want to do to it, and it my character is allowed to have better aim than I do, and that was the only reason I ever had any success in that game whatsoever. If I'd had to aim in WoW, I wouldn't have lasted 6 months.
Oh, same. Same.
I'm sorry, I'm having a good laugh about that. That's funny. Oh my goodness.
You okay?
I'm fine. I'm sorry. Since I'm like super overtired, so that is very like my delirious state. That is hysterical to me. But that's where I'm at. So you know what? It'd be like that. Um. So since then, after getting all into it and stuff and living your best life, like what would you say is like some of the best things about being in the Overwatch League community? Because there's a lot of ups that sometimes we don't talk about. There's a lot of good things.
Definitely. I mean, the community itself, the people. That's such a cliche answer, but it absolutely is. People like you guys. I've made a bunch of friends that are good friends of mine even outside of league or esports stuff now. Um, just through having teams in common or Discord servers in common, things like that. Um, the whole energy of being a sports fan is something really unique, and it's something that I never really got to experience. I've been a like casual or passing fan of many traditional sports teams over time, and stuff like that. But I've never had like gotten really into it like the hardcore fans do, and it's a really unique experience of having is like this is my team, and the community that builds around that and the investment and the feeling the ups and downs of that. It's just something really unique, and I love that. I guess this is a new venue through which to bring that experience to more people who might not be interested in traditional sports for whatever reason. Um, it's like it's a kind of community that really doesn't exist outside of you know team fandom like that, and the fact that that's a thing that more people can experience now is a great thing. I really enjoy that aspect of it, and like I said, it's the first time I've ever really gotten to be a part of something like that out since, like I said, I've just never managed to get far enough into traditional sports to really feel that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Community has been a big part of my favorite thing as being an Overwatch League journalist. Like this time last year, I had nobody to watch with. My friends were like, "What are you talking about?" And then this year, I have all my wonderful coworkers that I can watch the games with, like Discord calls, and
Yell with and
and I can talk about "Oh my God, they're so terrible. Why are they doing this to me?" And they'll have people understand and not be like, "Huh." So it's
yeah,
really good.
yeah,
It's
people
really
that
good to have
understand the
that.
language, understand the language you're speaking.
Yeah.
My parents thankfully understand just enough about like traditional sports that the general thing of like I got to tell them that the Valiant beat Vancouver and they got to be excited about that, and yes, amen. And because like they understand the concept of this is a team that was really good in the minor leagues and they came up and they're being completely undefeated and they just take over everyone, and then this team that's been sort of like low middle of the pack came out and managed to beat them, and it was a big deal, and it's like they can understand that. The league format makes it possible to translate stuff in a way that people who are familiar with traditional sports can understand it. So like my parents grew up, I live in SEC football country, so they understand football, baseball, that kind of thing, and I can, like I said, like they can't watch a match and know what the hell's going on, but I can explain to them, this is where this team is in the standings, and then they did this, and this happened, or this team traded this player to this other team like 2 days before the season started, and nobody knows what's going on, and they understand stuff like that at least. So on a macro level, they can get it. I try. They both tried to watch it with me before, and are just like,
Oh yeah, no, my dad's the same way.
there's nothing there. I taught my mom how to follow the kill feed.
Oh, me
So she
too.
go like, yeah, it's just like and actually, it was so funny when I was at the Dallas homestand. There was one of the security guards outside of the press room, and was watching. I did the same thing with her. A really really sweet older lady named Irene. She was looking in her 60s or 70s. She was so sweet and so helpful, and she was talking about how she had no idea what was going on. And I did the same thing for her. And because there was a screen up there showing the games, and I showed her where the kill feed was. I was like, that means someone from that blue team killed someone on the white team, or vice versa. And it's like, so if you're watching that, you can generally see what direction the fight's going in. If it's all going in one direction, or if it's really back and forth, you can at least sort of follow who's winning.
Yeah, the colors helped my dad a lot. The minute
Yeah.
he was like, "Okay, so the orange team is dying a lot," and I was like, "You don't have to say that, but yes, they are." and then he
I
he
still
understood
remember
it from there.
actually I'll tell you this, when during the finals last year, you'll appreciate this one. I was watching the finals in the living room on my dad's big screen, and I started yelling when they put hot button on Tracer, and they
Oh boy.
I know. I was like, I mean, I like Guangzhou now, so it's like we can
Mhm.
we can bond over our baby Hotba. And I was yelling at the TV, and my mom was like, "What just happened?" I was like, I was trying to translate this into them, and it's like they just put a linebacker in to play quarterback and
Yeah.
nobody's really sure why.
Yeah.
And then he started popping off, and I was screaming some more. And it's like, I said, what happened? I was like, that linebacker they just put in at quarterback just threw a 70-yard touchdown pass, and where nobody really knows what to think anymore.
He's just so good, man. I miss him
That's
every day, but he
good.
went to a good home. He did go to a
He
good
did.
home.
He did.
He
We
did
love
go
him
to
in
a
Guangzhou. They're all so good.
They are.
I love them so much.
The I have just leaned into the fact that I feel maternally protective about 80% at least of these boys.
Yep.
I'm just like, you know what? That's just how it's gonna be. They're my babies, and I want to protect them.
I believe that so much in my soul. Whenever I watch a Valiant game and I'm watching that kill feed, I don't even care whose team is facing it. It could be my own team. It could be Boston, which is going to happen in stage 4, and I'm going to feel real weird about that game. But like, I'm watching that kill feed and I say anybody killed agilities, and I'm like, I can't believe I have to go fight somebody because they killed my boy. They did that. and it hurt me because they did it to hurt me personally because that's my boy.
Hmm.
How
Yeah.
dare they do that to me in this day and age? This is unheard of. It's ridiculous.
Rude.
See,
Exactly.
with
That's
me, I usually feel that way about Alarm in Fusion University, but then I'm like,
Yep.
it's okay, he'll take care of it. He'll remember. So I don't gotta worry about him too
It's nice
much.
when they can take care of
Yeah,
themselves.
exactly.
Alarm never forgets. Alarm never
Alarm
That's
forgets.
why.
remembers.
That's why I like tank players. They
Mhm.
they you know they can handle themselves.
Yeah.
Sorry, getting some water down my throat. So, on the flip side of that question, what are some of the things that you have to sort of combat head on and face? You know, being a woman, how dare we all, being a woman in this community, and then also being a woman who's over the age of 23.
How
Well,
dare us?
How
right,
dare we?
right, right. Back in the kitchen. Um, maybe one of the best comebacks I ever heard was my friend Liz. Somebody told her to get back in the kitchen, and I don't I don't remember if I yelled her the line and she said it to them or if she said it herself. But she said back, "Why should I be in the kitchen when you're the one feeding?"
And
But yeah, it's and I actually addressed this in an article that I once started writing and then never finished. Um, that the moment you get in voice chat, I have a recognizably feminine sounding voice, and I use a recognizably feminine username. So people know from the jump I'm a woman. That's I could hide it if I wanted to, but it's just not. I don't feel like changing my username after all these years, and why bother? Um, Whereas age, it's something that people don't know that unless I bring it up. You know, so I'm a little more intentionally vocal about it because you know I want to make it. I sort of want to make it a point. I want to remind people. Hey, that especially since so much of the talent is so young, so many players are under like half the league's under 21, I swear,
Mhm.
and so many contenders players aren't even 18, and all this. So it's it's not something that I actually have personally dealt with a lot of blowback for. The blowback for that is more internal. Um, it's more in feeling out of place because even in situations where, the fact that I'm much older than most other fans or people in the business is not public knowledge, I know it. And I have to sit here in the middle of this conversation and like these people are all like 23 years old. And, every time somebody on a player or someone on the talent team or whatever has a birthday, Bren is 23. What the hell? How?
I can't
How?
talk about that. It really
I
messes with
can't.
me.
Yeah, I almost had to jump in a lake. I had to go find a lake to jump in. And um, to my knowledge, there is exactly one person on screen on Overwatch League ever who's older than me. Doa is a year older than me, and that's it. He's the only one. I am older than everybody else I see on screen every week, and so that's one of those things that doesn't come up so much as active actively things being said or done in the way that gender, sexuality, and things like that happen. It's a lot more like assumptions being made and things like that, and just sort of the assumption of where everyone is in life. And you know so it's not something that happens as obviously and as directly as other uh, kinds of discrimination or prejudice that show up. But it's definitely there. Like I said, it's more just a quiet feeling of not, I don't belong here, and feeling like it's more pressure I put on myself. Like that's I should be past this. I'm a grown up. This is childish. I should be over this. And then I have to remind myself that it works exactly like traditional sports. There are people twice my age covering traditional sports and involved in stuff, even though the players are all very young. There are people in their 40s and 50s and 60s covering college football, which is full of people about the same age as an Overwatch league. And it's like, it's you know, it's like it's something. It's more internal than external. I think of the list of things about me that make me feel out of place in esports sometimes, it's probably the lowest on the list. Age, and I think the but I think being the combination of being older and being a woman um, gives me a pretty unique perspective too. The combination of the two, that even the other women in the scene, so many of them are fairly young, and it's like the combination of having a woman's viewpoint as well as that of someone who has been around the block a few times and like has lived through just the generalities of life for a bit longer and is more used to dealing with other human beings and dealing with drama or rudeness or meanness or you know a friend doing something you didn't expect them to do or hurting you or whatever. Just little things that happen in life, and just there's a lot of stuff that I can gloss over that people younger than me often can't. And that's not necessarily a bad or wrong thing on their part. If something affects you, it affects you. How it affects you, you can't really control that. But I'm I'm a lot better, except when it's not like serious stuff that I'm actually upset about. It's like I'm a lot better at live and let live, and just if somebody's awful, they can just go be awful on their own time, and it's none of my business. Just don't be up in my face about it, and I'm more than willing to ignore you, and you know just go be dumb somewhere else, whatever. I don't care. And I don't I'm breaking myself a lot, especially if the need to pick fights.
Oh, I feel
it's
that.
like it's like sometimes it's like I will if it's something important. If it's something important, if I feel like me saying something could actually have a positive effect, like if I think I can actually change someone's mind, or if it's a case where other people are being mistreated and they need to visibly see that somebody is in their corner. you know I will stand up and say something just for the sake of I know it's not going to fix anything or change anything, but I want the people affected by this to understand that someone is standing up for them, make people feel less alone. And so I think I'm better at choosing my battles over time. It's taken me longer than it does a lot of people, but I think I'm getting there.
I think that's something that only comes with age too. Like I don't try to. I know a lot of these people in the industry, since it's so recent, are young. They're young. They're in their 20s and they are just having a great time. And I love that for them. And then I definitely think that there's, like you said, you learn what to, focus on and where to pick fights. And that comes with experience being around the internet in general for longer. Like I just turned 27 this year, and until I don't know. I like what you said when Brent made his post and he was like, "Happy birthday to me. I'm 23." I was like, "Are you joshing me? Are you absolutely joshing me?" That Brennan Hook. I'm older than Brennan Hook. Are we doing this right now? I couldn't handle that for like 3 days. I literally could not handle that. I was like,
Honey, you think being older than Bren is bad? I'm older than Monty.
"I'm so sorry."
How old's
Yeah.
Monty?
Huh?
How old's Monty? I actually don't know.
It's like 31, I think. Monty's 31 and Puckett's 32. They're the ones that are closest.
Okay.
I'm 33 and Noah's 34.
Okay.
Joe, I didn't know that. I thought There's so many things that I don't know.
I know. Danny is 30.
What?
No, he's
Yeah,
not.
that's what he said. He
No.
posted his birthday was not long ago, and he was like, "I turned 30 in Disneyland or something," and I was like
The hell?
horrified, but also relieved because like he's cute, and I'm glad that he's not 19 like the rest of them.
I just love that he had his birthday at Disney because, like, that's where I see myself at 30.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I said a long time ago that I was not going to marry a man who wouldn't take me to Disney World for our honeymoon. Like,
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's on. That's it. Period. That's it.
Period.
We're going. Yeah, a period. Ta. All right. So now I'm gonna shift into something real fun. Kate, do you want to shift into something real fun?
Sure. Which real fun thing?
The Game House.
Yes, where we work. That is a fun thing to talk about.
Mhm.
Okay, so you currently write with us as well. Have
Yes,
you
ma'am.
enjoyed covering both the Justice and the Outlaws because you are actually our Outlaws writer now? How
Yes, I
have you
am.
enjoyed covering for them so far?
I've really enjoyed it so far. I was, I first applied to write for Houston, and they had somebody already doing that, and Rob asked if I wanted to write for Washington or Seoul, and I was like, I'll write for Washington. They're young, they're new, there's a couple players on there I know and like, and I'll start with that. And uh, I really sort of got a crash course on a new team very quickly. And I feel like it was good for me to start with a team that I didn't know as much about so that I could, get used to the idea of, how covering stories work. Because I've done a lot of writing in esports. I haven't done a lot of actual news coverage like writing. It's I've written a lot of human interest pieces and hype pieces and thoughtful pieces and stuff like that. Stuff that's not necessarily, my heart has always sort of been more in the human side of the game and the community, rather than the actual numbers and the actual game itself. So moving into that arena was easier with a new team that doesn't have a ton of history, didn't have a ton of baggage attached to them, except for the record. And God, everybody's got some of that these days.
Hmm.
And but I really enjoyed it. The community around that team is really great. Um, it's very much an underdog team, and there's a I noticed that there was and the best I can guess is that there's a difference between being and I don't want to say this in a way that sounds like mean or derogatory towards them at all, because they really are, they're all good kids. I like the team, but there's a difference, I think, between being a fan of a team that was once performing really well and then started to perform worse, and a team that has just kind of been poorly performing from their inception. You know, Washington has existed for one season and they have won 2 games. And there's not there's not a ton of expectation there about their performance. It's like people know, what they needed to do better, what could or should be done better, and they know it's there, but like there's no expectation that, well, maybe next week this team. No, they're the same team they were last week. It's not gonna, whereas I've noticed a thing with happens a lot with the Outlaws fandom is it. I feel like the only person who's like reasonable about it, because everyone I know is like either completely Pollyanna sunshine 100% of the time. It's okay, we'll come back, we can do it, we can do it. Everything's great. It's like, baby, we just went 0-7. We're garbage right now. Like, you can love them and still admit that. And and then on the other side, there are the kind of people who, like, as soon as we have a poor performance, are like, oh my god, I hate this team, they're so bad, why can't they get their crap together? And it's like, we beat San Francisco a week ago. We knocked the socks off the best team in the league, and nobody expected that. We're playing a billion times better than we were 2 weeks ago. This reset, the stage gap and the midseason break was obviously a huge improvement period for them. It did them a ton of good. Even when we're losing, we're doing so much better. But like, they were tearing it up for a week, and then as soon as they had that one unexpected loss to Florida, people are right back to acting like, they're hot garbage and I can't believe I'm a fan of this team. And it's like, one, having your team win is fun.
Mhm.
Having your team lose is not fun. Those are things I can accept. That's part of the whole thing. But like, if your actual affection for the team is going to wane based on their performance, just go be a Titans fan. Well, nothing against Titans fans, but like, there are
Right.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
there are teams in this league that like win 80% of the time and are just consistently just super super good all the time. And if that's a contingency for you to enjoy being a fan of a team, you should go be a fan of one of those teams, because Houston was not that team. We were that team for one stage. It was great. It was a fantastic time. You know, but it's then the Mercy nerfs happened, and you know, this is where we are. You know, so it, and I feel like I don't know if, you know, if other teams communities are like this and all, but it's just like, it feels so much sometimes like I said, like everyone's either ignores the fact that they're struggling, or treats ignores anything good that they ever do. It's like, if you're not gonna do anything but complain every single time they lose, then
I know
you
that.
have to you have to kind of understand that losing is going to happen.
Yep.
Like I said in one of my weekly previews for the Justice, like the ultimate downside of standings is there will always be somebody at the bottom of them. By definition, 50% of the teams are going to be below average.
Mhm. Yep.
That's how math works. This is stuff we covered in 8th grade. And so it's and I'm a very emotionally invested person. Like, I'm an autistic Virgo. I care too much about everything. That's like a major facet of my personality. And so I get very emotionally invested. I get devastated when they lose. I've cried. I've had to turn the game off halfway through and go cry. I didn't watch the end of that Florida game because I saw what was coming. I will admit that. But, you know, I don't even remember where I was going with all this, honestly. This is what I meant when I said it was a mistake to let me talk.
No, really.
I'm like,
No.
I don't even know where I'm going anymore. Just, it's, I feel like covering Houston is a good balance of hope and realism. And I feel like it's a good fit for me because I'm able to sort of thread the needle there, that I'm not here to blow sunshine up anybody's butt. I'm not going to pretend that, we haven't been a hot mess most of the year. But at the same time, I'm not here to dump all over this team. I'm a fan. I love them. I think they're good. I think they can be great, and God love them. I'm willing to believe that they'll improve until they prove to me that they're not gonna, or whatever. So I think that's part of what makes them a good team to cover, of an enjoyable team to cover, is that you know they're good enough now, that it's not, well, we lost again, and we lost again. Hey, we won a map, but we lost again. They're not just consistently bad, because that makes it hard to write about. I like legitimately had some trouble writing Washington sometimes, because it's like, I made the same mistakes as they've been making for the last 2 weeks. What do I say? How do I make this sound different from what I wrote last week? But at the same time, there's enough variability in there that it does feel good when they win. Because it's like, if you win too much, then wins stop being fun.
Mhm.
They stop being as exciting, and if you but then losses still hurt. Like for San Francisco goes in and steamrolls a team. It's like, okay, well, we've been
Yeah.
steamrolling team the whole season, whatever. Yay, we won. But it's not like hooray, hard fought. It's, and then when you do have a close win, you don't get to feel like, all right, we eked that win out. We, snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. You're like, why was that so close? Why didn't we just stop it? So I enjoy being a fan of a mid-range team because as much as, I love them and I want them to win all the time and have everything their sweet little hearts desire. Um, you know, it's it doesn't dull the excitement of watching them pop off. Their their baseline is enough middle of the road that they can still outperform themselves sometimes, and that's fun. you know, you know.
Oh
It's
my
like I
goodness.
was I was always really good in school. I made great grades, and it was like I would make like a B in something and be devastated, and you know. But making A's was never exciting. I never got to feel proud of myself because it was like it was what's expected of me. It's what I always do. So yeah.
Be like me, just get C's, and then when you get that A, you're
C's
like,
get
I
C's
did
get degrees. C's get degrees, honey. You
Yeah,
know what they call
exactly.
they call the guy that comes in the very bottom of his class in medical school?
Qua.
Doctor.
Hello, hello, doctor, doctor. Hello.
You
I
know.
feel no, it's rough. As somebody who's been writing about Boston for the past stage, I can't.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's
It's
hard
rough.
out here when
I
you.
remember I just remember at one point before this past stage you and I were talking on Twitter one time and you said something like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they're going to go to map 5 and I'm going to have to write about another map 5." And I was like, "I'm sorry. Are you complaining about being a team that can actually win map 5?" You know?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yes, but ever.
Okay, you
Like,
know what? After the reverse sweep, I told Kate straight up. I was like, you know what? Okay, we did it again. Miraculous. I can't keep doing this, but we did it again. And then after the Valiant one as well, I told Kate, I was like, I'm never asking for anything from the Overwatch League gods ever again. I don't need anything else. I'm good after this weekend. I had a good day. Philly can 4-0 Boston,
Don't
whatever.
put that energy out there this week. Do not.
God, I was trying to explain that game to my dad, and I was like, these are the two teams with the most chaotic energy in the league. Philly and Boston are the two teams where like something that makes no sense is gonna happen, and the world is gonna get turned upside down, and black is white and dogs are cats, and nothing makes sense anymore. And
Yep.
then you put them in a game together, and it was like, oh Jesus, here we go.
Like,
Only
Just
only
popcorn dot gif.
No, only Boston and Philly could go to 6 CP and drop.
yep. That's
Yeah,
us.
that's
And
the most
That's us.
Boston and Philly thing that
it's the
ever
most
happened.
thing. Me and Kate were watching that game together, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna happen, isn't it?" Yup. Oh, a draw? How fitting for these not like part of me needed to go to a map 5 just because Philly always goes to map 5, Boston always goes to map 5. So for the
Yeah.
memes, I was like, that would have been dope. But then after that draw, I was like, this game better be over. This game has
I
got
just
to
remember
end.
I just remember somebody was asking a while ago. I was looking for old games to watch, and I was like, "What were some of the best games of Stage 2?" And I mentioned the Guangzhou and Atlanta that went to like 18
Oh
CP
God,
or whatever
yeah.
it was. That was like 2 CP went 4 rounds, and Assault Hybrid went 5 or some crap like that.
Hmm.
And it's like the number. You know what the best thing about that match was? I had in my fantasy league, I had both Dogman and Shu on my starting roster that week.
And you're like,
So I was like, so it's like each of them had like 400 points. I was like, you know what?
You did well.
Je-
You did well
Yeah,
that week.
yeah.
Jessie's sitting there refreshing her page, like, map. Oh no, round 7. What are we gonna
I
do?
forgot about it at the time, so I was watching, and I missed the first part of the game, and I came in right at the beginning of King's Row, and I didn't know what had gone on before, so I was like, "Oh my god, this is going on forever." And then like they went to the score line, and they said that the previous Hanamura or whatever it was like 7-6. I was like,
It
"That's
happened.
number." You know what it reminded me of? I was on my high school softball team. I went to a very very small private school. My graduating class had 37 people in it, and we were very very bad. Um, and our headmaster came out. It was one of those really sports oriented schools, but the girls' sports were an absolute afterthought. So our headmaster came out one whole time ever to watch us play, and he came out and looked up the scoreboard, and it was in like the 6th inning, and it was like 3-2 for the other team. And he was like, "Ah, that's all right, girls. I know y'all can rally. You can come back." And somebody had to explain to him that no, actually it was 23-2, but the scoreboard only had a 1 in the tens digit, so they couldn't display a 2 there. So no, we're actually, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Okay.
Sorry, that's funny. I'm sorry.
yeah. It was. I had no business playing softball. The literal only reason I was on that softball team is because everyone who wanted to be on the softball team was, because that was how few people we had. We had to take everybody in order to have a functional team. I had absolutely no business being out. I had no idea what I was doing. You know, so.
As long as you had fun, that's all that matters.
Yeah. It's like, 18 CP, sure.
Oh
Sure.
God, that's Mallory's jinxed it. Maybe that's what we'll get on Saturday.
Yeah. I
I'm
remember
not
watching. It's like watching those first the stage 1 finals, and it goes to 7 between San Francisco and Vancouver. It's like, well, yeah. Was it ever not going to? Was that anything else an option? Like,
No.
And that
I'm
was some of the
surprised.
best damn goats we've ever seen. That
Oh God, yeah.
entire
Like, it's
time.
like if you were like I feel like you could skip the entire previous year of professional Overwatch and just watch that map and be
Mhm.
like, the whole previous year was like this, but way worse and more boring.
Yep.
And that's like all the goats you need.
Yep.
God, I actually had a tweet from during the off season, because I was stupid. I said something along the lines of, the only thing worse than goats is worrying that it's going to go out of meta before the Overwatch League starts, so Houston can't run it, because we had such a good tank line that I thought we were going to be great at it. And no. So in fact, it's like, I remember, like sometime in the last couple of months, Spree had a tweet where he had tweeted after Brigitte was first released. He tweeted like, "This character is really fun. I think she's gonna, the character control. I think she's gonna add add a lot to the game and make some interesting comps." And then like a couple of months ago, he quote tweeted himself. He was like, "Oh God, please forgive me. I didn't know."
Oh my God. I
Sorry.
understand.
Well, if
Oh
the
my.
rumors are true, maybe we won't be seeing Brig as much in the next couple coming weeks or
Maybe.
so. But we shall
Mhm.
see on that.
We'll see. I'm still not 100% sure how I feel about that, but
I think the community as a whole is pretty mixed towards it. We have people
yeah.
who hate it and
But
people who
almost,
love it.
yeah, and I'm not a good enough analyst, I'll admit that, to like really be able to think about what it's going to do to comps and what effect it's really going to have on the game. Um, I'm only annoyed by it right now. Like, if it had happened after stage 2, I'd have been delighted.
Mhm.
You know, but now it's like, okay, wait, now it's looking like having all 3 of our great DPS in at a time is like our trick. Like, it's like, okay, we play Jake and Linkser and Dante, then we win, and it's like, and now you're gonna tell us we can't. It's like,
Yeah.
no.
It's gonna mess with a lot of the teams that have the
The same.
3-2-1.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's just it. It's gonna be weird. I feel better about the fact that apparently the teams knew about it for a while now.
Mhm.
I was like, okay, that's cool. If they've, so that was my biggest worry, is springing it on teams who spent all this time adapting to these weird metas and suddenly having to completely readapt. You know, but if they have known about it for a while, then it's like,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Like for me it makes sense cuz like we started seeing players like Sabiolbe coming out, for example, and we saw like,
Mhm.
Philly, like, as much as I want to think, Hayes maybe read one of my articles criticizing the fact that they're not letting them play DPS, they let them to play DPS. It's like it makes more sense that
Mhm.
they've known about this and they've been preparing for it. And as
Yeah.
much as I want to see, more Poco Hanzo, because that was insane, probably never gonna see that again, which that's fine. But I think it'll be okay. I think certain teams will do better than others though, for sure.
Yeah. We'll see. But,
Yeah.
I have a few, there are a few people I know that are really against it, and a few people I know that are rejoicing because they just hate goats that much.
Mhm.
And I have one friend who hates it so much, and I sent him a tell in the middle of the All-Star game. I was like, "Hey, I don't know if you're busy, but the All-Star game's now, and they're running a ton of DPS comps and stuff just because of the nature of what it is. It's if you want to just see something that's not goats, definitely tune in." And then I sent him another message literally a minute and a half later. I said, "Okay, I know I told you it was actually serious good DPS game, but now like Fury and Sabielby are having a dance off, so." Or I forget who it was. It was Fury and somebody,
I
but
think
like
it
Fury was doing
was.
spamming dance emotes
Yeah.
at somebody, and I was like, so yeah, never mind.
JVOB. I just need to say it once real quick. Thank you. I think we have a really good question to close it out,
Yeah.
especially for Pride Month. Kate, you want to go into that?
Yes. So, as someone who is also LGBT, what does Pride mean to you? Do you experience anything negative when it comes to who you are in the community at
Oh,
all?
absolutely. It's the interesting thing about the place we are, I think, right now, is that I I have gotten little to almost no direct abuse or hate because of my identity. Like directly somebody saying something to me about my sexuality. But the problems come in the sort of outlying tangential stuff. The biggest things are, obviously people using homophobic language, unthinkingly, not even directly at people who are LGBT, but like just, as insults or whatever, and unthinkingly. And the fact that even people who would not themselves say that kind of thing or are not themselves particularly prejudiced don't like the implication that they should have to change their behavior. There are several people in the community that I will not name that have said and done harmful things to assorted, marginalized community, racist, homophobic, sexist, transphobic, the whole gamut, that I feel uncomfortable criticizing in public because people fly to their defense so much. Like nobody's going to come at my throat for being bi. But if I stand up and say, "Hey, this person has said some awful stuff and I think they should be held accountable for it, or they should not do that," and I think that reflects poorly on them as a person, that's when I get both barrels. It's and I understand it's normally very, very gauche to appropriate quotes or whatnot from like one group's problems to another group's. But there was a quote from, I believe, Malcolm X talking about racial reconciliation. And he said that um, if you stab somebody in the back, you can't make up for it just by pulling the blade halfway out or just by pulling the blade out. You have to heal the wound that was left there. And I feel like, you know, even in the cases of a lot of people who would not ordinarily be hostile towards LGBT people, there's a point past which your indifference towards other people's behavior becomes malicious behavior. Like it's like I said about, the times that I know standing up or saying something is not actually going to change this person's mind, but I want to say it because I want there to be a public voice in support of these people so that they know somebody's on their side. It's sort of the same thing that, you know, you may not say or feel anything hostile towards me and mine, but if you're willing to sit by and not care when somebody does, and or blow off, say it's just memes, it's just jokes, whatever, it's just how he is, whatever, he didn't mean it, he's a nice guy in real life, you know there's a point past which that passivity becomes harmful. That letting it go is not really any better than doing it yourself. um and it said something that came up in a description. It originally came up in the discussion about Gregory, and the people that accused her of cheating and all of that, and the fact that she has been very gracious about that. She's always said, it's water under the bridge. I'm not angry at anybody or anything like that. We're just moving on. And the way I put it then was, she can forgive them for what they did to her, but she doesn't get to choose whether to forgive them on behalf of what they did for every other female player in the community and the way that their behavior affected the environment for all the rest of us. And it's the same way with homophobia, transphobia, whatever. If player A is awful to caster B because of their identity, caster B can forgive them if they want to, but that doesn't undo the damage that that person did to the entire community and to creating a more hostile environment for the rest of us. So one thing that I think a lot of people who are any kind of minority probably struggle with, I know that I have personally, and I've seen some others do as well, is like, you don't want to be a token, but you also don't want your identity to be ignored. You don't want to be the gay player or the girl player. You don't want that to be your entire identity. You want people to understand and respect your skills and that you're there because you deserve it and you as a whole person. But at the same time, there's that kind of person who says, oh, I don't think of you as gay, or I don't think of you as black, or I don't, like that. And it's because they have preconceptions about whatever group of people that you don't fit. And rather than having to wrestle with the fact that, I believe this about X group of people, but this person disproves it, they just ignore that part of your identity rather than having to grapple with the fact that their beliefs are wrong. So on the one hand, you and then the general you don't want your entire identity to be fixated on this one thing, on what subgroups or whatever that you belong in. But at the same time, you also don't want people to be able to discount it and ignore it, because you want them to have to grapple with the fact that, yeah, this person that I like and respect and is doing good things in the scene or whatever is gay, bi, trans, female, black, brown, Asian, whatever. So it's about finding that balance, I think. And it's different for everybody. And if anybody who wants to be super loud, out and proud, and slap rainbows and pride flags on everything that they own, and be obnoxious about it, hell yes, be obnoxious. Be as obnoxious as you feel like, At the same time, if there's somebody who doesn't want to, who wants to just own their identity and be who they are and just do their thing, they absolutely have the right to that too. I think a big part of it within the community is about understanding how complicated relationships with your identity can be. Um, you know, uh, One thing that comes to mind is that every time somebody has asked Muma about being the only gay player in the league, a couple of different times he has said something about being the only LGBT player and then stopped and corrected himself and said the only openly LGBT player. There are, the numbers, they're like what, 120, 80, something like that, somewhere between 150 200 players in this league. The numbers say there's more than one LGBT person in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Like two now, I guess, with Elk, since he is still technically two-way. But, the numbers say there are others who, for whatever reason, are choosing not to be publicly out. Whether that's because of parts of the esports environment that they don't feel comfortable being out in, or in some of their cases, they may be like privately out to their friends, but they don't want to be publicly out because like they've got family back home who don't know, who are more conservative, and they don't, you can't be like loudly out on the internet and keep, you know, your mom from finding out about it because she's reading your name in the news. So it's I think Pride is about finding that balance for everybody and for letting everyone own their own identity to the degree that they do or don't want to, and being aware that within and outside of the LGBT community, that you don't know everyone else's journey, that you don't know what somebody is or has been or has gone through or identifies as you don't know who's listening. Bear that in mind, when you say stuff, because I've been in I've been in games and seen people say sexist crap and not knowing that I was a woman, or I say homophobic crap not knowing that I was queer, and you know stuff like that. And obviously you shouldn't in general be saying this stuff at all, but like at least like I said, I've said before, I've gotten to the point where it's like I honestly don't care about the content of people's character anymore. I care about the effect they have on my community. Like if somebody wants to be an awful person on their own time, as long as as long as they're not saying it in public, and as long as they're not making the environment more toxic for the rest of us, that's like whatever. And at the same time, when somebody's making jokes that are harmful to me and us and ours, like I don't care if they're really a good person at heart or whatever, if they're just doing it for laughs, or it's like I don't care about whether they're a good person or not. I care about the impact that they're having on the community. And the things you say have an impact whether you mean them or not.
Yep.
So I think that's the heart of it, is letting everyone understand their own identity and what it does and doesn't mean to them, and endeavoring to make esports in any community a place where everyone feels comfortable being who they are at whatever level they want to be. Nobody feels forced to pretend. Nobody feels forced to be loud about stuff that they don't want to be loud about. Nobody feels compelled to do or say or be stuff that they're not comfortable with and feels unwanted. So that there, like I said, that whole background feeling of feeling like I'm different from everybody here, even if they don't know it, even if they don't say anything, I'm out of place and I know it. The goal should be to eliminate that feeling for everybody.
Agreed.
That hit me in my honey nut filios. Take it soft on camera. I don't intend to be a bad
I'm,
bitch.
Embrace the
I'm good.
softness.
I'm good at monologuing. That's one of my strengths.
No, but that was it. I don't even want to say anything after that because that was it. That's the point. That's perfect. Period.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank
So you
you.
know what,
Yeah.
Kate, what you want to say? Because she did the damn thing.
Yeah, you did the damn thing. Like that was very beautifully put and very eloquent, and I agree 100%. Like it affects the community a lot more than I think people realize, and it's something that definitely needs to be worked on for sure.
Yeah. It's not even necessarily about us that are involved in the business or in the community now. It's about the next ones.
Hmm. Definitely.
It's about the babies. It's
Yeah.
about the ones coming up, and whether you know each round of us has to you know the first few women or LGBT people or whatever in any group take the first blows, and that makes it a little easier on the next wave of us, and then we take a few hits and that makes us easier on the next wave, and we keep showing up. And what you know a lot of what helps me is keeping in mind that every knowing a lot of the women or LGBT people or whatnot who did that for me, and then knowing and feeling like I'm doing that for the next generation.
Yeah, it's all about
That
building.
every uh another thing Muma said one time about why he liked playing tank is he said because any hit every hit that lands on me is a hit that didn't land on my team. And I kind of like that. It's like every blow that I have to take, that I stand up and willingly take, is one that didn't land on somebody behind me, who might not have the strength to deal with it. So
Yeah,
you take what you can for the rest of your community and know that they'll do the same for you when you can't.
Yep. Mallory and
Yeah,
I were talking earlier about how important, like, especially for female journalists, like, we have to be there
Mhm.
for each other. We have to be that
Yeah,
sisterhood for each other.
yeah,
Like, it's just so important that we make the journey easier for the people who come after us.
100%. Yeah. And before I start our closing out bit, I want to add on to something that Jezi touched on that's really important, where Moomba has corrected himself and said the only openly out LGBT, player in the league. I follow EVA on Twitter. I follow her very closely. I followed her for a very long time. She's a beautiful streamer. She's a trans woman, and I love her with all my heart. And she is amazing to watch. And she has said herself that there are more people in this community that are queer that we don't know about because they're not in that safe split. They're not in that safe place to come out and be who they are, and it's their choice to do so. And
yeah,
it's our responsibility to make sure that this community can be that place for them if they choose to do so. It's up to us as this league is being created and as we go forward, it is definitely on our shoulders to make sure that what we have to deal with now from some of these players that aren't held accountable for things that they should be, that doesn't happen anymore. That doesn't, put a realistic time stamp on it. We'll say like 5 to 7 years. Hopefully by then we can sort of eliminate that out and we can look forward to more of these people feeling comfortable and happy and stable enough to be like, you know what, this is me. And until then, we just have to be the best that we can be in supporting them and loving them and celebrating every year. Pride Month is important, and I'm that person. I'm obnoxious. I am obnoxiously gay. I will tell you the first thing I do when I meet people sometimes is like, "Hi, I'm Mallory, and I'm gay," and it's fun, and I love to do it because I love having that be
one
part
of
of who I am.
one of my dreams I saw on a really old photo of a very early Pride March. Saw it on a sign. I really want to go to a Pride event and have a T-shirt that says "By and Large."
I love that. I love that.
Oh
I
my
want it.
god!
I want it.
I love that.
Someday.
I'll
Someday
make
I will.
I'll get it done, sis. Don't you worry. I'll make you a t-shirt. I'll do it. I'll do it. All right, that's us right on the hour almost. We crushed it first, third, and second of all. So I'll let everybody else say goodbye first before I say goodbye. So Jesse, you may start. You may impart us.
Thank y'all so much for having me. Like I said, thanks for the hype up and the ego boost. Feels a lot like shouting into the void some days, and the fact that people, I'm still sort of adjusting to the fact that people actually listen, actually give a crap what I'm saying, because I've spent a lot of my life screaming into the void. Um, like I yell a lot about everything, whether anybody listens or not. So the adjusting to people actually caring is like, okay, But no, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you everybody that watched. I couldn't have chat open or anything because if I let myself open other things, I will go off into forever. But you know, everyone, thank y'all so much for having me. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure to be here and a pleasure to know y'all and a pleasure to be a part of this community for all the ups and downs and bad apples. It's 100% worth it, and I'm glad to be sharing it with lovely people like yourselves.
And we're so
She's making
happy to have you. This was a great episode. We loved having you on. So, yay. Good
she's
episode.
making me she's making me soft on camera again. I can't be this.
Embrace the
I'm a hard ass.
softness.
I'm a hard
I am mom friend. I am ultimate doting southern auntie friend. I do that to everybody.
We love that.
I will love and support you whether you want it or not, damn it.
Oh my god, thank you, mom. um,
I'm the person at Pride with the free mom hug sign. That's absolutely me.
I
God,
love that.
I do too.
So underneath all of our names is all of our Twitter hashtags. You can catch us all there. We all work for the Game House now, so you can catch all of us covering our respective teams. I cover Boston. Kate does Philly and Paris. Jezi is now on the Outlaws, where she belongs. And yes, we'll be back next week with some more fun stuff. But until then, it's been real, and we will see you later.
Peace.